Hi, I'm Ken Appel with Citihub Consulting, and today I'm going to describe a case study of a ServiceNow implementation executed for one of our clients. The primary objectives were to execute a ServiceNow implementation including service requests, incident management, problem management, and change management. The client engaged a third-party ServiceNow partner in order to provide the templates and developers to assist with the implementation. Citihub was engaged to provide subject matter expertise and project management in working with the ServiceNow partner firm on a daily basis to ensure all requirements were met. The project was a resounding success and was completed 3 weeks early and under budget. The remaining budget was used to develop enhancements to the platform and create a number of catalog items beyond the original 3 provided by the ServiceNow partner firm as part of the Go Live. Citihub's IT Service Management Assessment Framework was applied to the client environment to understand the people, process, and technology involved in their current state architecture. It was quickly recognized that the client was greatly lacking in all areas, and extensive data discovery and workshops were going to be required in order to identify all of the requirements. The first step was data discovery, which included using 6,500 emails sent to the IT department over a 45-day period. The analysis identified important details like the top categories, the top requesters, and time to resolve. The time to resolve was based on the last email from the resolver, which indicated that a resolution was imminent. One interesting metric indicated a correlation between the top requesters and new hires. This detail influenced the creation of an onboarding process and a corresponding service catalog item. We worked closely with the ServiceNow partner firm to host workshops in order to identify the priority of the catalog items and to understand the pain points. We were also able to assess training requirements from these interviews. After hosting workshops for each of the service areas, it was decided to execute a 2-phase rollout. The first phase would be for the service desk and IT infrastructure teams. This would allow them to learn the intricacies of ServiceNow before rolling out to the end users. To facilitate phase 1, email aliases were created so that all emails sent to their IT department would now go into an intake queue in ServiceNow. This queue was triaged by the service desk, and incidents and service requests were created and assigned to Level 2 and Level 3 teams. After a period of maturity, the second phase would then be executed and communications and links would be set up for the end users to create tickets using Employee Self-Service Portal. Another conclusion derived from the data discovery and workshops was that the client did not have a functional CMDB, which would be critical to any successful ITSM implementation. An extensive data gathering exercise was initiated in preparation for the ServiceNow implementation and included identifying all of the hardware, software, and IT service categories in order to design the CMDB infrastructure. We knew we would get user information from Active Directory, but there were many unknowns regarding the gathering of infrastructure information. Much of that information was undocumented or resided on Excel spreadsheets in various locations on the network. The client had a strong desire to consolidate documentation in a knowledge base in order to integrate more efficiently with ServiceNow incidents and service requests. There was also a need to centralize release notes from the application development teams as part of the change management process. The primary challenge with document discovery was actually locating the documents, as there was no standardization and multiple copies of the same documents were available on the network. There was also a lack of version control, so it was difficult to determine who wrote the documents and if they were still relevant. The immediate win was a drastic reduction in emails to the IT department once all emails to that address were routed into ServiceNow. Since the first phase was transparent to end users, there was still a necessity to communicate with the end users regarding their requests, but the back and forth was reduced significantly to just over 2 emails on average. In order to make the first phase transparent to end users, all emails sent to the IT department were converted into tickets in ServiceNow and triaged by the service desk. We created 20 new catalog items with medium to complex workflows that will ensure tasks are assigned to the proper teams in order to resolve service requests. Seen here is the first part of the new user onboarding workflow where multiple tasks are generated based on fields selected in the catalog item form. We knew that from day one we would be using Active Directory for user information, but it wasn't clear if or how we would provide single sign-on. Another challenge was centralizing the CMDB in the presence of other tools like Case, which provides workstation and server discovery and software deployment functions. Although ServiceNow has built-in discovery, Case was going to remain part of the environment, so we needed to work with it to avoid duplicate efforts. We also wanted to use the client's internal discovery database, which was where all infrastructure database information was stored. Due to the tight integration of discovery database with the application development process, there were no immediate plans to decommission it. A ServiceNow mid server was installed on Windows 2012 in order to facilitate the integrations with Active Directory, Case, and the discovery database. As hinted in the previous slide, we use the Active Directory Federation service to enable single sign-on for ServiceNow. The biggest challenge was enabling SSO for Chrome. Since ADFS is a Microsoft product, it did not provide seamless Chrome integration out of the box, and the client's Windows infrastructure team did not have any ADFS subject matter expertise. With a lot of online research and some help from Microsoft, we were eventually able to get ADFS working with Chrome, which could have been a potential showstopper for the Phase 2 end-user rollout. The CMDB was a significant challenge since we were starting from scratch. Once we had all the data imported from all the sources we could find, we had to build relationships within the CMDB. Here is an example object model for the email service. As you can see, there can be quite a number of components for a service, both logical and physical. We were able to import database to server relationships from the Discovery database, but all configuration items had to be done manually. The change management process was completely overhauled. The original process was a weekly meeting used to discuss upcoming changes, but there was no governance or approval process. We had multiple meetings to work out the different change types and approval workflows. A change advisory board was created, and a weekly meeting was added to discuss the process and governance, as well as design enhancements to the ServiceNow change interface and approval workflows. In addition to designing process and standards, we wanted to ensure the branding was consistent across the client environment. This included minor updates to the ServiceNow CSS styles and some significant changes to the email templates. Before we could start the second phase of the implementation to the end users, we had to refine the employee self-service portal to ensure a complete and easy-to-use interface was provided. As part of the knowledge management implementation, we created two knowledge bases. One was a protected knowledge base for the service desk. This contained documentation that helped Level 1 and Level 2 execute requests and solve incidents. Anyone outside of the service desk would not have access to this knowledge base. The public knowledge base has information for end users that will help them be a little more self-sufficient and reduce the number of tickets submitted to the service desk. The go-live for the first phase was very successful, and we were able to release the ServiceNow partner firm earlier than initially planned. The go-live for the second phase was completed by the client post-Citihub engagement. There were a few important lessons learned on this project. First one was to ensure all key stakeholders are identified early in the process. If a key stakeholder misses the workshops, there is potential for delay in the project while catching them up or redoing part of the implementation to obtain their buy-in. The next lesson was regarding communication. We need to ensure everyone understands the timeline and set expectations properly. The CMDB was challenging on many fronts, but it was not made any easier when stakeholders and potential data contributors could not agree on who owned what part of the infrastructure. It took a couple of months to identify who was providing what and getting the data from them. There are many aspects of ITSM that depend on the CMDB data, so it's important that those responsible for providing the data understand their impact to the project. Perhaps one of the biggest lessons learned in this project was to ensure there is subject matter expertise for single sign-on before embarking on the implementation. We spent months trying to debug an issue that could have been addressed in minutes if anyone knew the details of the ADFS infrastructure. There is often a gap between the ServiceNow partner with implementation expertise and a client with no ServiceNow experience. Citihub is very well suited to fill that gap with experienced project managers, ServiceNow subject matter expertise, and a strong client focus. Other services include ServiceNow Implementation Rescue for clients who are not able to fill that gap for the implementation and are feeling the impact from a poorly managed implementation project that did not meet their expectations. Finally, we provide options for long-term ServiceNow continuous improvement with focuses on managing and executing enhancement requests, system upgrades, and expansions. Thank you for taking the time to view this presentation.